It is that time. It is Thursday at 5:30. Well, what, 4:30 for you, Heather?
You mean Wednesday, Matt?
Oh, I'm losing days. Look at that. Thank you for correcting me. We are here every Wednesday at 5:30 my time. That is Eastern, 4:30 Central. This is How to CPCU. We are put on by volunteers of the CPCU Society. Our second week after having a week off, which is absolutely fantastic. So, and it's Wednesday, so we get to get into the second half of the week with a little bit of fun here, which is good. So, what do you have on your radar? You got a new gig, and they threw you right out of the frying pan into the fryer, huh, Heather?
Absolutely, and it's super exciting, and I wouldn't have it any other way because, once again, Mach 3, hair on fire, that's my life.
Well, and you're the change person, so that's perfect. You're the one best suited to deal with it, which is good. A little bit of housekeeping: like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, retweet, get this out there. This is a show that is dedicated towards giving folks an inside look at the CPCU Society. So whether you're a current member, longtime member, candidate, you're in the insurance industry and you just never even knew that there was so much value wrapped up in a professional society like this, definitely get that information out there and share it to those folks that can use it, and get them to come and watch and ask questions and things like that. We take live comments and questions, so if you want to share those live, we do address those, and if they're PG or PG-13, sometimes we'll take a PG-13 comment here and there. But so this week we return to our spotlights that we're doing on interest groups within the CPCU Society. And so these are two interest groups. Have you ever been involved in the two interest groups that eventually became this interest group that we're going to be talking about?
Not actually, other than just the connections that I had with them through like our social media tribe and everything that we have rolling. So that's not a lot, but always been super interested in what they do because, I mean, CPCU is about growth and development, right? As an insurance professional. And these people are totally focused on that.
Yes. So without further ado, we're definitely going to find out. So and I'm completely green because I have not had a chance to be involved in any of their meetings or anything like that. So we are joined by two special guests, one of which is a returning guest, which is Rita Williams-Bogar, who is with, now let me keep this straight. You were formerly with what, PERG or LME?
LME.
LME. Okay, so Rita is the representative that is going to be talking about this new interest group, but coming from the LME side of the table. And we have Victor Foggie, who is coming from the PERG side of the table. How are you, Victor?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. I feel like I'm on a talk show radio station.
Yeah. Right?
Sunday.
Yes, exactly. But I'm doing fantastic, Matthew and Heather.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. All right. So before we kind of get into some history and things like that, what exactly, I'll ask you, Rita, what exactly is the name of the newly formed interest group when the two came together?
Great. Thank you. So thank you. I too, Victor, feel like I'm a star here, on this interview. So let's back up just a moment and let everybody know what LME stood for and what PERG stood for.
Very good point.
That's the educator in me. So LME is Leadership and Managerial Excellence Interest Group. And PERG was Professional Experience, and I forgot what the R was for. Resource, thank you. Professional Experience Resource Group. So together we are PG&D, Professional Growth and Development Interest Group. And I'm going to give a shout out. We are now on Twitter, so people out there, follow us. We are PGDIG3. PGDIG3.
PGD. Oh, I got it right here.
Yeah, put it in there.
Let me pull it up so everyone can see it so that they can follow you guys. I should have gotten a scrolling banner for you. But here we go. PGDIG3.
Yes. I don't know how the three, Twitter assigned the three
Yeah.
to us.
I want to know who the other two PGDIGs are.
So do I. So do I.
I'm glad you explained that because obviously it feels like a talk radio show, and I did not want to get us confused with, although it never happened, with RG3.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. And we will be on LinkedIn shortly as well. That's my role with the interest group is I'm the social media, got us a Gmail account. So we'll be posting. So please follow us. So as we mentioned, we're discussing the name stands for Professional Growth and Development. And in the intro, as you stated, the CPCU Society is all about growth and development. And that's what we do. We've got two great groups that came together from the beginning. And Victor, we were at that meeting. I forget what city, or was it New Orleans, maybe? Or Denver? One of those.
New Orleans.
San Diego.
Actually, it was New Orleans, and New Orleans is like Vegas. We can't tell you what happened in New Orleans, but we came together in New Orleans. It was actually a great meeting in New Orleans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the two groups came together and we were already brainstorming, how do we blend? How do we meld? Because there's so much synergy, which can be an overused word, but there's so much between what the two groups were doing. So we started focusing on how do we make this work? Let's make it happen.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let me just comment on something that Rita said. Because one of the things we did leading up to the meeting in New Orleans was we asked each group, so what are you doing well? And what do you need to really work on? And what's not really working? So this gave us an opportunity to come together. Let's focus on what PERG does exceptionally well, which is mentoring. And let's focus on what LME does exceptionally well, which is leadership development. And those two sort of merged together. And when it was decided that LME and PERG were coming together, it just seemed like a match made in heaven. It was like, okay, I've met my perfect match here. I've met my what do you call it in kind of it wasn't a blind date, but
it's like your soulmate.
Yeah, exactly. It was a soulmate made in heaven, and you could just tell the way that me and Rita are sort of. We didn't actually plan this together, but we actually a lot of what we do, a lot of what they do, now we're doing it together. It just seems to naturally sync together.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if you follow Greek mythology, we all were born with a pair that we spend our life searching for. So in this group, the pair met up.
Rita, I've told you this story before, I think. I played baseball in high school, and one time we were playing a neighboring school, and I play first base, I hit third in the lineup. Their third baseman hit third in the lineup. I'm Matthew Struck, he's Matthew Strunk. I found my doppelganger. We even kind of looked a little similar. It was really weird.
Wow.
It was like, yes, yeah. I would have shook his hand, but I'm afraid I would have caused like a rift in the space-time continuum. I don't know. But that's good. I'm glad that there's a strong kind of like crossover, or at least complementary, fit there. I'll let you lead, Heather. Where else do you want to kind of like go picking through this?
Well, I'd like to know, like, since you guys know that you have such similarities and such complementary things to each other, like, what are your plans now that you've came together as professional growth and development? What are your plans to kind of move your IG forward to continue to help CPCUs, no matter where they are in their career, to grow and develop? Because that's your focus, right?
Right. So I'm going to tackle one part of that. And one of the things we talked about in that meeting in New Orleans was, as the society talked about streamlining the interest groups and putting them together, it was all about what is your value proposition. Society as a whole is what is the value proposition for the society. And we came together within our groups to say, okay, what is the value that we bring not just to the society, but to the individual members of the interest groups, and more importantly, to the society members. So from a PERG perspective, it was all about mentoring. And so when you talk about, and we all have our personal stories, right? I remember when I was a frontline employee trying to get into leadership, and then I had to try to find a mentor. I found someone who could mentor me and really kind of give me the direction that I thought I knew, but I was making a few wrong steps here and there. So when I look at LME and I look at PERG combined together, for us, that's one major value proposition that we can bring to not just younger members, although that's the primary audience. When you think about someone who's actually just completed their CPCU or actually as a candidate member, they're doing that primarily because they're trying to advance their career in some form or fashion. And that's where the mentoring comes in. That's where the leadership development comes in. So we're going to continue to leverage those things to help our individual members of our interest group continue to help develop the members of the society and continue to showcase to the society as a whole, this is one of our major value propositions. Rita.
I couldn't say it any better. I'll get into some of the how, because that was great. So some of the how we will do this. We have a liaison from our group, as do other interest groups, to the Insights Publications Committee. We will be incorporating articles and insights that relate to career growth in the insurance industry, because everything in the magazine does need to relate to our industry, of course. We provide webinars. We also provide sessions at the annual meeting. When we had the I almost said leadership retreat, but the leadership conference, we always were on the agenda. One of the two topics that came out in CPCU Society member surveys were needs for those essential skills, which other people call soft skills. I call them essential skills. The essential skills for career development. And we on the LME side focus on leadership development. How do you communicate well? How do you present yourself well? How do you make that transition from being an individual contributor to now you're leading a team? We've done workshops on skills-based leadership. And then on the PERG side, there was also a big request for mentoring. So the two groups, I mean, it just makes sense that we're together and that we offer these. So whether we're speaking at a chapter meeting or putting on a webinar or writing an article or a session at an annual event, we're out there.
Let me just comment on that before I forget this, because
Sure.
there's just so much synergy here. So when Rita talks about the how, she talks about the webinars and things of that. I knew Rita and I knew Aaron, who actually heads up the combined group, but I actually have them actually presenting one this month at the local chapter. I'm in Arizona. They're presenting a session which is about mentoring and growth, and then Rita's doing something on, I'm trying to remember, branding. We've got that coming up for the Arizona chapter. So just sharing our knowledge, and now that we're merged together, I can tap into the expertise. Secondly, one of the things that we did with PERG was it was sort of speed mentoring at the annual meetings, where we would take an individual that would lead a session. We would get 8 to 10 people to just talk about whatever the interest was. And then finally, Rita mentioned this, and so we're all going to be, well, we've all presented. I presented a proposal to present at the annual meeting. It's called Mentoring Matters. And I'm talking about why that's important, not just the local chapter, but the society as well. So we are engaged in a lot of things, but one of the things we also talked about is we cannot be all things to all people. Let's choose a few things that we're going to do well and do it exceptionally well.
Awesome. So let me ask you a little bit deeper into the mentoring piece of it. The speed mentoring sounds like a fantastic idea because it's kind of like a bite-sized, highly concentrated source of mentoring. The society itself also has what I understand is a newly launched or kind of like renovated mentoring program. Is PERG running something in parallel to that, or I mean not PERG, but now professional growth and development? Are you guys going to be running something in parallel to that, or is it more of kind of like an input and you're assisting the society level mentoring program?
So it's the latter. Actually, I've been very involved with that. I rolled out about 2 months ago, and I've been giving them a lot of feedback, only really for a couple of reasons. One, mentoring is kind of, insurance is what I do to pay my bills. Mentoring is what I do because I love. And so it's my passion. I'm actually the mentoring chair for the Arizona chapter. And so we use the society site, which is on Into Risk, as the vehicle to get folks signed up. So you sign up as a mentor. You sign up as a mentee. And the ultimate goal is to have matches. And so that's the vehicle. Now, every chapter may do something differently. And this is one of the things I want to talk about if I'm selected to present, is that it's great that the society has created a vehicle for mentoring, but you need mentoring local champions to help facilitate, to keep it up and up. So it's one of the things we're doing in Arizona. So we've got someone presenting. I mention mentoring every single time I can. I put together an artificial goal. It's called 10 plus 10 plus 10. 10 mentors, 10 mentees equals 10 matches. So we're at 9 right now. We've got 3 mentees, and we just have to continue to match it up. So those are just some of the things that we're doing.
Awesome.
You kind of read my mind there, Victor, because I was just thinking about, I always look for ways for local chapters to connect at that international level, because sometimes local chapters feel a little bit on an island and, we're just kind of running our own show. I see a connection here where professional growth and development as an IG could really start reaching out to chapters to help them to build in mentoring programs. Like my local chapter, we have a pretty extensive mentoring program with local college kids, because we have an outreach because of a lot of colleges in our area that we partner programs with. But I've always wanted to look for ways that the chapter members could mentor each other or mentor across chapters as well. But I just think you guys have like a golden opportunity here, because you're in that space, it so well. You could really help to bring chapters along with developing and bringing about a mentoring program that can really be realized and everybody can recognize the benefits of it.
Let me comment on that, because that's one of the reasons why I want to present at the annual meeting, because I said it earlier. One of the recommendations that I've shared before, and I will emphasize that, is that the society can do what they can do, but everything starts, and I want to get political here, but everything starts at the ground level, grassroots level. So you got to have somebody as the champion, sort of championing it. And then secondly, this pandemic has actually given us an opportunity to do more things like this. At the first virtual meeting, myself and Sherry McFadden, who's one of the governors, we presented a session called Mentoring with the Growth Mindset at the annual meeting. As a part of that meeting, we were requested to present the same topic for the New Hampshire chapter, which we've never done before. I mean, how often? Maybe Rita's done more than I have, but I don't think the chapters actually interact enough. And with this vehicle we have right now, I think we have an excellent opportunity to do. Look at what we're doing here.
Right. And to your point, Victor, yes, when I've been out doing my workshops on behalf of LME at an annual meeting or a leadership summit, I've gotten requests from chapters. Can you bring that to our chapter? So whether it's leadership, whether it's emotional intelligence or communications, yes. In fact, I'm coming to the Central Illinois chapter via Zoom, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm zooming in and helping them with this topic of professional growth and development. So for that meeting, we're looking at how can you develop networks and mentoring from a distance? What do you do in this virtual environment?
One of the things I want to say, Matthew, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Go ahead.
It's again, I keep saying this is like this match made in heaven. One of the things that PERG brought and LME brought, and I think you see it here, it's just an incredible passion. We're just passionate about what we do. And it just makes us even more passionate. So that is just, I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah. No, the passion, again, this is one of those things that's very difficult to convey, and we've done a poor job of it as a society in the past, conveying it to people outside of the society, is the passion and the commitment and just people that care, like they just, excuse my French, but they give a crap, right? Like, and it's not just some kind of like social club where people just kind of like hang out. I mean, there's a social aspect to it, but there is some meat and potatoes to it. Like there's something that gets produced. And what you two both made me think of is at a former employer, I won't name them because, we try and be agnostic and things like that here, but they had a pretty good setup. They had, a sales environment where you had sales staff, but then you had these basically internal sales pros, and they had a certain area of specific expertise. And so it might be in, a certain type of policy or a certain type of industry. And you could tap those champions to come with you because you probably didn't know that much about that particular topic. I think it's completely analogous to the chapters and the IGs. The IGs offer that very in-depth, experiential or even kind of like book knowledge of some of these topics. And, chapters undoubtedly need to tap those resources more. And so hopefully, you're right. I mean, the idea of COVID and kind of our decentralized communication now is becoming more collaborative across the entire network, which is fantastic. How is the primary kind of communication going to work in the future? Is it really going to be, is there an intent or was there ever in the other two IGs, was there like a newsletter, or is there an intent to kind of have a regular email communication that comes out, or will it be something else that's more kind of like high touch and one-on-one?
How about yes?
All of the above.
We used to have a newsletter. I can speak from the LME perspective. We used to have a newsletter back in the day that went out hard copy, and then we were looking at doing something electronically. I think as a combined group, I'm sure actually as a combined group, we're looking at best ways to communicate. We've been doing some brainstorming amongst our team as well to figure out what areas are we wanting to focus on specifically, and then how do we do this to engage other members. And to your point about collaboration, we also partner with other IGs. So Denise Brown and I do a lot. Denise and I submitted a proposal for Into. I'm in the PG&D, Professional Growth and Development, until I get the acronym right, and she's in claims.
Right.
So we collaborate. Ethics has something coming up. So Ethics and I have submitted a proposal for the annual meeting. We do things working with other interest groups as well. So we're looking at that touch. Now that we'll be on social media, expanding our presence, specifically Twitter and LinkedIn, that's going to be another way of touching members and getting people involved and giving them ideas for growth, tangible ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on something because the society has been struggling for years with retention. How do you keep folks engaged and involved in society, and particularly the most recently inducted members? I mean, they get their CPCU designation and they move on, and that's not the intent. And this thought resonated with me. I talked to I scoured through the mentoring site, and I saw two mentees that were in Arizona. I physically reach out to them and track them down. And there was a candidate member, which means in this case he is currently working in the CPCU. And I asked him, so what are you looking for within society, and what are you looking for within this mentoring relationship? And there's something he said to me that resonated. He says, Victor, mentoring is going to keep me engaged in society. Mentoring will keep me engaged in society. So I thought about that, and we'll get them engaged, keep them involved in the meetings, because as a candidate member, they're a little different because they're not quite CPCUs yet. So our plan here is that we keep him engaged, we continue to mentor him, we continue to help him grow. Then once he becomes a CPCU, he takes that same level of experience and hopefully gives back as well, because he remembers that the experience was a positive experience.
I love that. I love that. What are your thoughts on that, Heather?
No, I just think that's such a powerful statement, because it talks about the importance of relationships for people, and how, every bit of what I thought about the CPCU designation was completely wrong when I got it. I realized.
Hot take.
Yeah. I realized after I obtained it that I was missing out on the relationship aspect of this piece of paper that I worked my tail off for, and behind that piece of paper is a world of things that can help you to continue on your professional journey. And as because we all have to keep growing, we all have to keep learning. It doesn't matter if you are, 3 seconds into the industry or 35 years into the industry. You have to keep learning and you have to keep growing, because our industry is changing so much. And you guys keep people plugged into that relationship factor that is so crucial. Otherwise, it's just, oh gosh, I'm just going to have to listen to some more information about, or read an article about InsurTech. That's the spark. That's the real spark of what CPCU is all about, is helping people to make that connection. So exciting stuff for me. Like that's amazing.
Let me just echo something you said, Heather, because it wasn't until the pandemic hit a year and a half ago, and I always attend the annual meetings. And I've always thought about doing what Rita does. Rita does a fantastic job in presenting. And I've always wanted to present. I'm not shy about presenting, as you guys can tell, but I never actually took the opportunity to do it. So someone actually shares, Victor, I think you'd be great at helping present this particular topic. Now, she did the grunt work for me. She actually wrote up the proposal. I just had to share my expertise. So I took that. I said, you know what? I can present a proposal. I can talk about this stuff we call mentoring. And, so I never presented before, but never presented via a virtual format. So I said, hey, I'm a CPCU. And even if I fall on my face, I've still learned something in the process. And we had a few technical difficulties, but gosh, I did it, and we did it. And so we share that within the society, that if you join an interest group, you're going to be challenged. You're going to get opportunities to do things that you haven't had the opportunity to do maybe with your current employer, but you're doing it in a safe environment.
And getting good feedback, getting the experience that you can then take back to your employer and say, here's what I've done. Here's how I've demonstrated that I can lead, that I can think critically, that I can present, that I can craft a proposal. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. So let me ask you this. I think that's completely correct. Like that is, or not correct, but I from my experience, and Heather will probably echo this, like the IGs that we've talked to, the ones that we've been involved in, that seems to be very ubiquitous in terms of, if you're starting out, you don't have a lot of experience, or you don't have a lot of authority where you're at, or, you're looking to take that next step. The IGs are a fantastic place to kind of like exercise those muscles before, there's money on the line and right. the underwriting, viability of the book of business and stuff like that. Right. But so, yeah, I think that's fantastic and completely on point. I think some people might ask themselves, all right, IGs are typically, separated by roles within the industry, right? Whether it be IT, agent and broker, claims, things like that. Who's a good fit for, or like, what are the qualities that would line up really well with this newly formed, professional growth and development IG? Is there kind of like, I know there's not cookie cutter, but what should really the individual who's out there who's asking themselves, maybe I should get involved in PDGIG, Who is that? What do they sound like, look like, feel like? What role do they fill within the industry?
So here's what I'm going to say to that, Matt.
Yeah.
Is that one of the beauties of our IG is that we transcend every aspect of the industry because everyone needs to grow. Everyone can grow. We have resources available. I joined other IGs at different points in my career because I wanted to learn about whatever that topic was.
Right.
So legs and regs. I'm not an attorney, but in insurance.
I do play one on TV though.
But I played one on TV and I slept at, what was that hotel?
Oh yeah,
commercial.
a Holiday Inn or something.
Holiday
Yeah.
Inn. Right.
Holiday Inn Express.
Right. So I wanted to learn, what do they do? So I joined that interest group. So I would offer that anyone who is interested in increasing their confidence, if they're interested in learning about leadership, if they're interested in being a mentor, if they'd like to strengthen their communication skills, if they'd like to stay on top of current events and trends in the industry, this is in and out of the industry because I service the industry. I don't work in it anymore. So still have a role, even though I'm not working for Heather's company anymore. I still have a role to play. So you can be in the industry, you can be around the industry. There's still so much value that an individual can bring. You just have to be willing to be open.
Awesome. What would you say, Victor?
I can't put it better than Rita.
Yeah.
and I am rarely lost for words, but hey, Rita hit all the things I would have mentioned.
Yeah. Awesome.
We're using some great words tonight, like soulmate, kismet, transcending. We have elevated our language this week, Matthew. So we are growing and developing right here with Victor and Rita.
Yes.
I feel like I'm a Toastmaster, and so there's always a word of the day, right? So we've got plenty of words here.
And what's nice too is, and Victor, I'm going to share this about you. What's nice too is the mentoring relationship is not just limited to being a part of the CPCU society. When I was training for my first half marathon, Victor was one of my coaches. He mentored me through that, and I took his advice and was able to finish the half marathon. And just in conversation, because I knew him, I'd seen him around, and we were in meetings together. And I was telling everybody in the world, I'm about to run my first half marathon. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And he kept me calm. Kept me calm and gave me great advice.
Do you remember that, Victor? Was that like something that sticks out in your memory?
Yeah, I do, because I say mentoring is my passion, but also running is my passion. So you probably can't. I have tons of medals back here, and so when Rita mentioned to me she was training for a half marathon, I was excited about that because it's not about finishing the race. It's about prepping and making yourself healthier about your lifestyle. So it was just something that, and every time I saw her, I would ask her, I would encourage her, and the advice I tell folks about running is, my friend, it's really about 1 mile at a time. Take one step at a time. My boss had asked me once. He said, "Victor, how do you run 26.2 miles?" Because first of all, you don't think about it, because you think about I'm going out to run 26.2 miles or 13.1 miles, and it becomes overwhelming, almost stressful. So you just think about, do 1 mile at a time. Translate that into your career. So what is it I'm trying to accomplish? Maybe I'm trying to get to someplace in 5 years. Call that your marathon. What do you want to do in mile 1, which is year 1? What do you want to do in year 2, which is mile 2? Yeah. Break it up in small pieces. That way it becomes, I think, that much more achievable.
I love that.
So I was going to ask you guys, just because this seems to be a topic that comes up pretty frequently, especially in our industry. What are your thoughts on the reverse mentoring process, where you have the newer generations and the industry mentoring up or across, or however that they're going to mentor, to someone who's been around for a while, Just what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, let me take that, because this is actually one of the things I talk about in my session, reverse mentoring. I think that, I don't think I know, if you want to, and Rita brought this up, if you want to continue to grow and develop, you've got to be willing to take feedback from others. And so I actually have a young employee. She's 20 something. She's just it's funny because I lead an underwriting team, P&L, and so she was promoted from an underwriting assistant underwriter. I'm coaching and developing her as an underwriter, and she loves to challenge me. And I said, you know what? I love the fact that you challenge me, because when you do that, I learn. I've been in business over 30 years, but it doesn't mean I have all the answers. You may have given me something a little different to think about, but more importantly, because she's a different generation, there are things that I may not be thinking about because I'm not there. So I may ask her, and this is a form of reverse mentoring without mentioning the term, how would you handle this today? Because my perspective of how I would handle it would be somewhat different than the way she would handle it. So I love the fact that whether or not you call it reverse mentoring or not, it just comes down, are you respecting the opinions of those folks who come from a different generation? Because if you can't respect those opinions, then guess what? You're going to lose those people. And then holistically, your organization is not going to be one that's perceived as we respect the younger generation. Then eventually, that organization will die.
Great. And I would offer to that too, is that it's got to be beyond technology, because there's this perception, okay, the younger folks are going to mentor the seasoned employees on technology. Okay, so 3 days later, now what do we talk about?
Yeah.
So it's got to be a genuine, as you were mentioning, how we can handle it. What I found on the corporate side is the biggest challenge for the newer employees or younger employees is feeling somewhat intimidated by somebody who was more seasoned and senior. Like, oh my goodness, I'm going to teach them. And the challenge by the more seasoned employee is the ability to shut up, because when you are the seasoned one, you're used to sharing your legacy and sharing your advice. But when you're being mentored, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
And recognizing that that younger or newer person has information and knowledge and skills that you need to continue your own growth.
So that leads me to a question. Is the IG looking for just people who want to be mentors, or is it also looking for folks that are looking to be or are okay being the mentee?
So it's actually holistically, is the question, is the society or is it the interest groups?
So like the IG itself
Yeah.
versus, I mean, I know the society is populated with tons of people who need mentors, but I'm saying that, like, if you are a mentee, you could go to the society mentoring program, right? But would that be a better fit? Maybe, and the IG is more for people that want to do the mentoring, or is it a mix?
Yeah, fair question. So you don't have to actually be a part of an interest group to volunteer to be a mentor. I mean, being a part of mentoring, being a part of an interest group is not a requirement. In fact, when I was inducted many years ago in Los Angeles, for a couple of years, I didn't join the interest group. I was still sort of navigating my career. I was involved, but I had my idea on some of the interest groups, but I was just busy. I just didn't take the time. So I joined the interest group a couple of years after getting my CPCU. So again, it's not a requirement to join an interest group. We strongly encourage. I think the society strongly encourages interest groups, because if you think about it, the annual meetings, which are now called Into Risk meetings, are annual meetings, and you have chapter meetings, so you can stay engaged with that. But the interest groups, I think, is really kind of taking a bigger step from my perspective. Rita?
And sure, thanks. And mentoring is one component of professional growth and development. So if somebody's interested in the leadership aspect or becoming a writer, writing articles, you like to research, How do I present? How do I structure something in order to be able to present? How do I move from this position where I've done my job and I've done my job well. Now I'm leading 5 people. So people interested in the leadership side and the essential interpersonal skills as well.
Yeah. Wow, Matt. Like
You ready to jump ship from claims and move over to PGGIG?
No, I just have to say, like, the mission of what you guys are pushing forth with this interest group is really inspirational, because it's what we all recognize that we need it, as insurance professionals. But a lot of times it's like, well, I'll get to that, or I'll do that a little bit later, or I'll develop myself with this, or I'll reach out and get a mentor when I have time. Well, the question is when are you ever going to have time if you don't make that time for yourself? So, right. And that to me is so crucial, because you guys connect a thread with those essential human skills across all of the IGs. Every claims professional, every underwriting professional, every attorney out there, every single loss control professional. It doesn't matter where you work. Everybody needs those essential human skills, and they need those relationships. So everything that you're doing is crucial to how we're going to evolve, even as a CPCU society as well.
Right. And even with the advent of so much technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, there are still people who are needed to program these, as it were. So somebody's got to lead that group of people. So how do you lead in this world where so much is being done by automation? How do you think creatively and strategically instead of, I'm going to be out of a job? Well, can you see that there may be another opportunity for you? That's part of where our passion lies too, is helping you to see those opportunities.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that, Victor?
No, I was going to comment on something else. And it's Rita said, it's not that our combined group is all focused on mentoring. It's just one of our core programs, if you will.
Sure.
I was talking to a mentee, just kind of vetting him out. I talked to him actually yesterday. And he's been in the business for about 9 years. And I asked him, what are you looking for? And the organization he works for now, it's this large organization, he works for Geico. But he says, Geico doesn't have a mentoring program. So again, we go back to the value proposition that society can actually bring forth as a robust mentoring program. But even a lot of national, and I'm going to speak in terms of the insurance carrier space, that's the space I'm in. I worked with Travelers for a number of years. And Travelers had a mentoring program on paper, but that's all it was. It wasn't one that was executed.
Yep.
Because the frontline, managers, as I said, grassroots level, no one had time to do it. But what I say to that is, and again, this is I'm kind of going into my presentation, one of the value propositions for an organization. Right now, I'm looking for a very strong underwriter that eventually wants to get into leadership, because that's part of my transition. So you think about as a leader within the organization, you don't have time, right? But when it comes time to you're expanding your footprint, or you're ready to step down, who is that next layer up for you? If you've had a program where you've been effectively mentoring folks, you've already got the pipeline built, as opposed to, okay, now I got to find somebody. And normally, they're not finding somebody internally because they haven't groomed, they haven't developed, they haven't mentored anyone. So again, it's just like there's so many benefits to this, but it's the sell is getting people to understand the benefit to it.
Yeah, no, that's all extremely valid. To your point, Heather, I think this is kind of what is at the core of the CPCU society. There are some aspects of keeping everyone kind of like abreast of, cutting edge technology and the direction the industry's headed and things like that. But ultimately, the reason for that is to make better leaders and better, kind of, I'll call them, the pillars of the insurance industry moving forward. And also the change agents that are going to have to, either enact these things or, like you, Heather, like help people cope with the change that's happening, and kind of like, prepare them to kind of like make it a little bit smoother in that transition. We do have a question from Mycel, like a CPCU co-host. So she is true CPCU through and through. She did a live cast for an hour, and now she's back on here to help us round out this broadcast as well. With reverse mentoring, how do you get past the notion that challenging the more seasoned individual is not disrespectful?
So great question. I think that a lot of the onus is on the more seasoned person acknowledging the fact that I'm being challenged and not feeling threatened by that. So, and again, I use my example of my less seasoned employee that actually, and she said it, I think maybe using a little humor. She said to Victor, she emailed me, says, I respectfully want to challenge you with a smiley face, right? So that actually is not that I get threatened because I'm challenged. I want to be challenged, but other folks may be threatened by that. And I think that's Fresh's question is that I think it's the delivery, presented in a manner where it's not really threatening or insulting their intelligence, if you will, but in a manner that I just want to understand a little bit better. And it's really a fine line, and I appreciate the question, Perez. It is a fine line because you're asking someone or you're challenging someone who has got a lot more experience than you do, but it doesn't mean that person actually has the best response or best solution to the problem that you're presenting.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't start your question with, okay, boomer.
Right. No.
It's not a good move.
Not a good move.
I want to make one last comment here too, because I think it's a legitimate question, and I think also maybe just pulling that person aside and when we were doing lunch, and just asking the question, is it okay if I have a different opinion? How best can I present that to you? And actually making them feel more comfortable with it as opposed to, okay, I'm coming at you now. Thinking, this little young whippersnapper thinks she knows everything. So yeah, just kind of smoothing the ground a little bit, if you will. Rita?
Thank you. And I was going in that direction because what I also read into this question is, what if I'm the less seasoned professional and I've been raised to believe I can't question my elders or I can't question my seniors? And that's where that conversation, setting the ground rules or the guidelines for a good experience, that's where that comes into play. Like asking the questions you just mentioned, how best. It's good to have that conversation up front when you're engaged in a mentoring relationship, no matter which way, whether it's traditional or reverse. Let's have set the ground rules for our relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes down to it's a different level of what we're talking about here, but for an employee and manager relationship, you have to first and foremost establish that relationship.
Right.
Because when there isn't a relationship, doesn't matter what you're discussing or what you are challenging them on, it becomes kind of a difficult situation. And that's where a mentor comes in to help you sort of navigate, how do I build a relationship with a manager? And because I'm struggling with that. And there are some techniques that we can walk them through in regard to that. Because we've all been there. We've all been there.
And that's where communication and focusing on your goals, your end goal, and your short-term goals come into play as well.
Right.
Awesome.
And I would just kind of tag on that to say a good leader is always going to be willing to accept coaching no matter where it comes from.
Coaching is a gift. Coaching
for you as a gift, as a leader, is going to help you grow. And taking offense to that or feeling like, someone's being disrespectful to you because they give you some constructive feedback or maybe challenge your thought process means that you're not in the right mindset as a leader. You have to open up your thoughts to the fact that you don't want to be in a fixed mindset about that. You need to be in a growth mindset about it as well. So,
did you read Dr. Zweig's book?
I might.
So, Mary Calmer actually has a point that's kind of related to that. I think you were onto something there with new managers not knowing what to do when they get that role. Maybe Rita, you're being volunteered here, Rita. Maybe Rita can develop a new Managers 101 course for the CPCU Society.
I would be absolutely happy to do so, because in my leadership practice, that is one of my sweet spots. Because that's a group that I've worked so well with when they've made that transition. Because a lot of times people get promoted because they do their current job well.
Yeah.
And then they're told, you have this team, you have this group, go lead.
Yeah.
And these days, employers are expecting you to hit the ground running. And not every employer has a management development program or a leadership development program. In fact, a lot, unfortunately, do not. So, Mary, we'll talk some more.
Let me comment on that because we all can pull back from personal experiences. So I was a frontline underwriter with the Travelers Group, which is a large national organization, at least with development programs. I attended all the programs, and then I became a leader. And so again, I'm working my book as an underwriter, 10 million about the book. It's all about running my book. And then I went from that position to leading 21 people. And I felt that I had all the training that I needed, didn't have any mentoring per se. And my boss at the time had been in the business for a long time, super, super nice guy, but wasn't really a mentor. I would go into him because these things are hitting you from every direction, right? And I would ask him, I said, Jerry, what would you do? Well, what do you think? I have this suggestion. Oh, sounds good to me. and so that was his response. And so I eventually learned that, he wasn't the person I can go to as great as he was. So then I leaned on my team. There were a few folks on my team that actually had a lot more experience than me. And so I would always say to them, look, before I have a meeting plan, here's what I'm thinking about saying. Am I going to look really stupid saying this? I mean, what do you think? It's really sort of leaning on the expertise of your informal leaders within your group and getting their feedback. And so in essence, they're coaching you a little bit. Right. Now you're tapping into their experience. A lot of the informal leaders are there because they don't want the headaches of leading, but they have a lot of the great answers, great solutions. So you have to first seek their expertise, ask for their feedback, and then implement it. The worst thing you can do is kind of go in like a hot shot, making a lot of decisions, and then now you're really making some bad decisions, because you really aren't listening and talking to the folks that you could really give you some good advice.
Right. Yeah. And I would sum that up by saying there's a 3-letter word that you have to get out of the way. And that word is ego. Because if we're ego vested, we're not going to ask for help because I'm in charge. I'm the boss. Well, yeah, I might be the one with the title, but they're the one with the experience and the knowledge.
Exactly.
So I need to develop back to relationships, develop the appropriate relationships with them as well.
Yeah. My last comment on that is just the question. The best leader, we've heard this before, it sounds corny, the best leader is the best follower. If you're able to put yourself in that person's shoes and then act in a manner that you think you could act, then I think you're going to be a much better leader.
Yeah. Well, what's the phrase? It's servant leadership. Right.
Yes.
It's the idea that you're technically there to serve the people that are air quotes working for you, because if they decided to get up and walk out the door, ain't nothing getting done.
Right.
So
they're following.
Yeah, they're ultimately the ones that are the ones that are basically the catalyst for success, right? Like. So really quickly, I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to make sure to get plugs out of the way here. I know I want to throw this up on the screen. This is an enrollment for Rita. You have an upcoming session this is April, what's the date?
April 6th.
April 6th.
Okay. Awesome. And this is with Central Illinois chapter is the the host, I guess?
Yes, and it's open to any and everyone who would like to attend. That Zoom registration link is for anyone who would like to come to that, and would highly suggest Rita's going to have a fantastic topic, especially for this time of year. We would love to have everyone there.
Awesome. And if anyone wants to find out more information, I know I looked on the CPCU Society website. There's still separate links for PERG and LME. But if anyone's looking for information about the combined entity now, is Twitter the best place they can go, or can they get information elsewhere?
Right now, Twitter would be the best place, LinkedIn shortly, and then we're going to be posting that on Interact as well.
Awesome. And can folks feel free to connect with you and Victor on LinkedIn as another means of contact?
Yes.
Well, Rita's free. I'm not. Absolutely, Matthew, absolutely.
That was like a hot potato kind of moment.
That was fun.
That's like so my wife and I, not to get too personal, but my wife and I, we both have our wedding rings are actually tattooed on us. And she was in the tattoo artist chair first. And as a joke, which almost ended my marriage before it started, when she was done, she was like, "All right, your turn." And I went, "Nope." And I ran out the door. Just as a joke. I came back like in 15 seconds, but it did not go over well. That joke did not land well, I'll tell you that much.
well, Matthew, you were gonna take the death.
Yeah. Or death. Yes, yeah.
She wasn't planning on being a widow that soon.
The life insurance policy did have her name on it, so I mean there was that impetus there. So, well, I want to thank both of you for joining us, taking the time out. It is a credit to what you're trying to put back into the industry. The fact that you're, here with, the personal growth and development interest group, and trying to work on that mentorship piece of it as well as the leadership development piece of it. We already stated that is the cornerstone of basically what we're trying to do as a society, with pretty much everything that we're doing. So it's interwoven. So, and I'm glad that combination is going extremely well, which is fantastic. I mean, whenever you go through a transition like that, I mean, Heather knows, sometimes there's turbulent waters, and then, sometimes you're lucky enough where everything just kind of like fits together and works. So it definitely sounds like that. Any final comments, questions, Heather, or sentiments before we say adieu?
No, just one other quick plug for everyone out there. Obviously, on the Interact community, you need to pay attention to that master calendar. If you are looking for opportunities to grow and develop, they're all there and readily available to you because of the world we're living in right now. You can attend chapter meetings all over the country. You can enjoy any of the webinars or anything else. Our little weekly shindig that we have going here with all the shenanigans that happen every single week is out there. So please feel free to join us. We appreciate you, Victor and Rita. This has been fantastic, and super excited to see everything that PG and D is going to be doing.
Thank you for having us both. It's great to be able to have this conversation.
And Precious said, very informative and inspiring. Thank you, Rita and Victor. Thanks, Matt and Heather, for another great program. So with that, have a very good evening, everyone. And we will see all of you out there in the internet sphere next week on Wednesday, not Thursday, Wednesday at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central. Thanks all. Have a good evening.
Okay, good night.